I am currently swinging on this chair because I want to and I'm having fun. Welcome back to Primary Teaching with Dom. Welcome back to Primary Teaching with Dom. And I'm very happy that you've watched my past videos, so thank you very much for that. So as you know, this is the purple shirt. This is the purple shirt kind of playlist where I kind of tell you the first video on how to look for your first teaching job, the second video to how to actually secure an interview, and the last one, which I'm doing now, is how you secure the job. So let's get on to this series, the last video in this series. Let's get on to it. So now that you've looked at the school, you've possibly been there, but I know for some of you it's just not possible. So you looked on the website and you loved the school, you applied to the school, you've done all the tips I said in the last video, and now that you have secured the interview, you're now scared because they've now sent you an email saying thank you very much for applying, and now they want you to do this lesson, and you're scared, and now you've got to go to the school next week to do it. They emailed me and said they want me to do a 45-minute lesson, and they want me to do on literacy, and it could be on anything that I want it to be. Obviously I'm in year 1, so I got to look at the literacy curriculum on year 1. They told me that there's going to be a few EAL students and a few SEN students, and that's all they gave me. So I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? So the first thing that I actually did was to look at the year 1 curriculum. So if you're in year 2 or year 3, I think by this point they will tell you what year you're going to be interviewed in. So whether in year 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or even reception or secondary school, you need to look at that curriculum based on that. So mine was literacy in year 1, so I looked at the year 1 literacy curriculum. I looked at that and I was thinking, how can I make this lesson interesting? Because that's what you need to do. You need to make the lesson interesting and as creative as possible. So, because you need to show them what you're made of. So I looked at that and I was like, a fun lesson would be adjectives. So I looked at adjectives because that's what I really want to do, because adjectives is you describe a noun and it's really interesting. So I was like, oh, they can do loads of that. I want to be a book focused because that's very interesting. And let me tell you the book I chose. I talked about this book and I said that this is the book I use for my interview. So this book I use for my interview because I don't know if it's focusing. It just has so much that you can do with it. So what I did with this, I went on to TES and I first typed in this book, so I got a PowerPoint. I did this and I read like that. But for some children, they can't see the book, so I had a PowerPoint presentation on there where I would click and they could read it on the board as well. So that's what I did. So then I first looked at adjectives and I thought, oh, that book will be awesome because you can do so much of it. So the next thing that I looked at was, how am I actually going to tailor this for different children in the class? So what I then did, which is great advice if you want to take this one, I emailed the head teacher and I asked about how many EAL children are in the class, how many SEN, and how many, what's their groups, do they have colour coding, because you know they're different groups, so what's the levelling. Now for some schools they're not obliged to tell you, some of them don't need to tell you, but my school in particular, they did actually tell me. I made sure that all my activities that I did, I made sure that I tailored that for the particular children. So after that, once I chose the book and I emailed the head teacher, which she did give me information about it, the next thing that I had to actually do was to figure out the timings and to figure out what I wanted to do within the lesson. So the first thing that I did was to think I need to be really creative. So I need to introduce myself, I need to have my teacher persona, I need to be like hello and all that command the stage, if you want to call it that. I had to make sure that the tasks were differentiated. So I wanted to make sure that the higher abilities in the class were a worksheet that was a bit more harder, and in the middle ability and the lower ability. And I made sure that there was ones for SEN. So the SEN children and EAL, I had pictures of crayons. And I had pictures, I had an emotions mat where the children would link a colour of the crayon to the actual picture of the person. So if it was a crying face, they would choose blue because blue signifies tears, or red, a red crayon would actually be linked to a child linked to a person that was angry. So I had that, and I had the TA work with them. Now, a note with that, is actually quite good for you as a class teacher to work with the very lower abilities in that aspect, because it shows that you're really working with them. So you kind of get the children on task everywhere else and kind of give the TA the role of being with the higher abilities, and then center yourself specifically with the children who need much more help. And then kind of dart round and make sure the children are still on task. Because although you're not their teacher, you need to show that you are their teacher, if that makes sense. Once I did that, I had the lower abilities, they had crayons where they would colour, and then they would just have a word that describes that crayon, so an adjective, so sad or unhappy, so that's what they would do. And then once they finished that task, they would then move on to the middle ability, and then so on and so forth. Middle ability, I had them have a crayon, and then they had a couple of lines where they would just write a little sentence to describe the crayon. So they would have the ability to name the crayon, so let's say Steve, and they will have a blue, they will colour it in blue, and they say, I am sad, full stop. And that's what they would do. And once they finished that worksheet, then they moved on to the higher ability. The higher ability, I made the TA a sheet that would have a list of adjectives that would up levels. Rather than happy, they would say joyful. And now I had the TA work with that group, and what they did, they had to write two or more sentences to describe how that crayon's feeling in the style of this book. So in this book it says Dear Duncan. So on that sheet I got them to write Dear Duncan, and then they will write a little sentence to describe how that crayon's feeling. And then at the end, I did have little sentence starters for them so that they could just move on from there, because it's quite hard sometimes. And then there was another worksheet on top of that, which they were able to do if possible. And it was really interesting. Look on tests, if you want to use this one, it's really good for Key Stage 2 as well, and you can make it harder. Go on to tests and look at those worksheets, they're amazing. What I then did, because I had the head teacher, assistant head, and the class teacher observing me. So then I also made sure that I did a plenary that sums up everything within that lesson. So I got them to sit down and kind of got them to discuss what they've done. So who did this task? Oh, stand up and tell me about it. Come stand next to me. So I did all of that, and the teachers really liked that. So it got them to reaffirm the learning, and I kind of knew where they were at during the lesson. I just made sure we did that. And I also read them a little bit more of the story because they wanted to know a bit more. So those are the things that I did within my actual lesson observation. Now the actual interview bit. So the actual interview is actually really quite important. You need to have questions in your head to ask them at the end. It's very important. So ask about the NQT package that they give you. What are the benefits for you? Do they give you CPD time? Do they give you training? What lessons do they teach? Do they do maths mastery? Do they do PE lessons? Are you going to be the PE teacher, or do they have external PE people that come in? Lesson planning. Are you able to lesson plan with teachers combined, or do you have to do it yourself? Those are the kind of things that you need to ask the actual observer or the interviewer at the time. Personally, for me, I couldn't prepare myself for the interview. I did have at university a mock interview, so that was kind of my actual way of knowing what the interview would be about. But there's so many questions that they could ask you, I couldn't prepare all of them. So I just went in, just going in relaxed, keep calm. If you have a bottle of water, or if they do offer you a glass of water like they did at mine, use it. They will ask you different kind of questions. Why do you want to apply here? Safeguarding will always be a question. So please research that. At the beginning when I sat down to actually wait, they had a safeguarding policy, so I quickly read that brochure. Behaviour for learning is a key one as well. So what behaviours do you think is acceptable, and what do you promote to give children the best learning in the classroom possible. These are the two that you need to look at quite a lot, especially safeguarding. That's always going to come up, no doubt about it. My interview tips is to be calm. Don't just rush the question. Ask them, can you repeat that question for me? Because I did. There was a question I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know the answer. Can you repeat that again? Take your time. Tell them, I'll just need a moment. Sit down, relax, think about the question, and then answer it. There is no time limit to it. I know they do grade you on the questions that you are asked. So please don't actually look at what they're doing. Look them straight in the eye. Smile. What I did, I had my hands like this on the table, and I sat like this, and I smiled. Looked directly at both interviewers, and smiled and answered the questions. I do stutter quite a lot, so I will repeat, and you do see that in videos where I kind of repeat myself. So just remain calm, talk slowly, and say the questions in the best way possible. When they do ask you at the end, why should we take you on? Prepare that. Now that's something that you can prepare. You can talk about the amazing things that you do, that you've done on your placement, that you've been a part of this program, that you've been a TA and that you've had experience, or any kind of experience that you've had, where even if you haven't been in the education sphere, kind of given what you've done before, whether you worked in social services, you worked in nursing, you've done or banking. All those things are very key because it's good organizational skills. Doing all of that is key. So those are my ways in which you can secure that interview and pass it. Just being aware of different things that go in education now. Talk about how you want to be an amazing teacher and how you are an amazing teacher. Being calm. Don't rush any questions. Take your time. And please have questions for them at the end. Now, there is a question that they will ask you. They will ask you, if you were successful, would you take this job? Now, a lot of us will just say yes. And that's it. What you need to know is that when you actually say yes to the question, when you say yes to that question, that is kind of an obligation that if they give you the job, that you will accept it. Regardless of if you have an interview the next day and you love that school more. If they offer you that, because you said yes, is a verbal agreement between you two. If you really know that you really want the job, say yes, go ahead. If you know that you have an interview, be honest, saying, I really do like the school, I do have another interview, so I will need time to answer that question. For some schools, they will be like, okay, and they will wait for you because they love you. Some schools will just be like, okay, that's fine, and move on and take someone else. That's a risk. And if you really don't like the school, say no. It's just what happens. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making this little series. It's actually quite fun. Once you get the job, you just sign contracts and then you just wait until the time, and whatever they say from there, you go from there. But thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed, and I shall talk to you and see you in the next one. Bye. But thank you for watching. Please subscribe up here and watch my 2 previous videos down here, and I really do hope you have a great day, and I'm going to have a great day myself. Until then, bye.